Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Baston. I'd like to welcome each of you to the Man Group Summer Series of free webinars. Today's webinar is titled Setting the Bar for Performance. Again, we're glad you're here with us today. In just a minute, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dan Mann, but before I do, let me go over a couple of items. First, I want to make sure everyone can see the presentation properly before we get started. On your screen right now, you should see a picture of the female pole vaulter. So if you're having any issues, please let me know. Secondly, on your control panel near the bottom, you should see the word chat. And if you will click on this tab, it will open a dialog box for you to submit questions or offer comments. Lastly, just so we don't have any background noise, we have everyone muted during the presentation. So if you have any questions that you'd like answered, please just type in the chat portion of your control panel and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. That's about all the instructions I have for today. So again, we welcome you, and now I would like to turn it over to the founder and owner of the Man Group, Dan Mann.
Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. Unless you're calling from the West Coast, good morning.
Muted.
To have you with us today. We're excited about our topic and excited about our presentation. We here at the Man Group are convinced that the role of the retail store manager is crucial for retail success. You could certainly make a case that the buying staff and that the marketing staff are crucial, but at the front line of your brand, the retail store manager drives business, drives success, and really guards your brand story. So we're focused on retail store manager as part of our ongoing summer series of webinars on the role of the retail store manager. Take a quick look at the things that they do. Responsibility for retail store management has to do with store maintenance, making sure the windows are clean, making sure everything is vacuumed and picked up. Product presentation. How good does the product look in your store? Is it appealing? Is it desirable? Is it well organized? Team selection, having the right members of the team, the right people on the floor to take care of your customers. Then once you've got your team selected, creating a great environment, team building, and having folks be excited to be working for you. You know, we know that most people don't quit a job over money. They quit a job over their boss. And so being a great boss and building a great team is crucial in the role of the store manager. Once you've got the team built, training, product knowledge, giving them the updated information that they need to be successful at their job, also that they can go out and conduct brilliant customer service. All of these very important roles driven by the store manager. So this role is crucial. It is vital that it be done well. If you own a store and you're listening to us today, this just points out how important your store managers are. If you are a store manager, this shows you the tremendous opportunity you have to drive your business and succeed. Don't underestimate the value of your role. Now, this webinar today is the follow-up to the 7 Steps of Manager Success webinar that we did several weeks ago. Well attended, and the response was so great that we decided to take each of these 7 steps and expand on them and give them their own webinar. So that's exactly what we're doing. The first one, which is the topic we're looking at today, of the 7 steps to manager success, setting the bar. Now, we'll come back to that in a moment because that's what we're going to spend our time talking about. I just want you to see the overview of the 7 steps. After you've set the bar, evaluating performance against the standard is the second step of manager success, followed by removing obstacles. So your team is not performing, your team is not living up to the standard. Why is that? What's going on? So removing obstacles is the next step to manager success. Then you've got to get buy-in. Everyone pulling in the same direction, working together and collaborating because they fully understand their role and why they do it. This means you must be, in the next step of manager success, able to select the right team. With so many choices and so many people applying, how do you know who is the right team member? So picking the right team member and making sure you got the right team in the boat, on the bus, crucial to manager success. Once you've got that team, motivation and discipline. Keeping the team inspired, keeping the team on the straight and narrow, like a great coach, motivation and discipline makes the difference. And how do you do that? That's the 7th step to manager success. It is in quality communication. Being an expert at communication, that's the secret. Now, these are the 7 steps to manager success, and I will tell you, we are exploring each of these steps individually through our Manager Retail Summer Series of webinars. So thanks for joining us today. Let's take a look at that first one, which is setting the bar for performance. You know, if you've ever been to a track meet and you've seen the pole vault begins by a height announced by the chief judge. The chief judge walks up and sets the height and says, here you go. You cannot even enter the competition unless you can clear this height. And so in that same way, we as store managers must set standards. What is it that we expect? What is it that we want? And quite frankly, too much of the time in retail, we just kind of take what we get. We're willing to accept whatever performance. And that is the first mistake retail managers make, and is the first proper step to retail success. Setting the bar, setting the standard. This is the expectation. Now, what are some of those things that you need to set standards on? Well, certainly your product is central to a retail operation. And so here in the most basic presentation of a retail store, we have a fruit stand. And look at what the fruit stand operator has done here. All of the product is organized. It is well maintained. It is clean. It is symmetrical. It makes sense. It's orderly. It's outlined. It's easy to shop. So we've got everything nice and clean and organized. Now, if you're looking at this picture like I am, I'm a little bit OCD here. That upper right corner looks like those yellow cherries, if that's what that's called, have been sold down a little bit, and you can see the bottom of the bottom of the barrel. And unfortunately, that's not the ideal presentation. And still, the overall view here is a nice symmetrical presentation. Now, what if this operator, this fruit stand retailer, decided, you know what would be fun? Let's just dump all of this fruit into the same presentation, have people pick and choose from raspberries and blueberries and peaches. Well, you know and I know that the customer doesn't like shopping that way. And therefore, it's going to become irritating, frustrating. The product is going to be devalued, and therefore it will slow down sales. People are not going to buy. So in your situation, if you're the retail store manager, you must set standards. How many raspberries in the little containers? Raspberries all together, and then followed by blueberries. Blueberries, and then they sit right below the cherries. And everything is ordered and organized according to your standard. Cleanliness, maintenance, symmetry, order, structure, sizes. So the first place you must be brilliant as a store manager is setting standards with your product presentation and store maintenance. These are absolute basic and priority for being successful. Another area where you must have standards is in team selection. Too much of the time in the running, cycling, and outdoor industries, we tend to hire people because they like our sport. They're good cyclists. They're a great runner. They've got a track record of being a good hiker. They know how to do certain things. Well, that does not necessarily make for a great team member. And so selecting the team according to a standard is crucial. Now, I'll give you my standard for selection. I like to divide my criteria into three areas. The first third is, if I'm hiring someone, do they have the people skills to be on a team? Do they have the emotional intelligence to get along with others? Are they interested in others? Are they interested in working together, collaborating? Can they communicate well? Are they even-tempered? Would I want to spend my day working with them? So first third, do they have the people skills to join my team? The second one is, do they have the technical skills to do the job? Now in retail, the technical skills, quite frankly, can be as simple as, can they work the schedule? Can they work the floor? Can they conduct themselves on the sales floor? Are they curious about customers? Do they know how to ask the right questions? Can they be persuasive? Are they passionate about the product? But in addition, there are other issues that are technical. Do they know the product? Do they research and understand what they're selling? Can they demonstrate fit technique? Can they properly fit and evaluate product against the customer? So technical skills are the second third. And then the third element of great selection, and this one is most often overlooked, and that is, does this candidate have a history of commitment? So I've worked with people who have been great sales associates, great managers, but had no history of commitment, and as a result, even though they were working for me, they were always looking for the next best thing, always out there looking for more opportunity. As a result, they never really focused on my job, never really committed to my company, and therefore they were not very productive. So I need to see a history of commitment. That's people skills, technical skills, and a history of commitment. And if you're the owner listening to this conversation right now, this webinar, and you're having your manager hire for you, then the standard is, how successful are the hires? How well are they retained? How well are they producing? What are the results of the people that you've hired? Hiring and selecting the right team is a crucial element of store manager success, and it's crucial for us to set a standard and follow that standard as we move forward. The next element of standards that we must consider, individual productivity. Individual productivity, unfortunately, in our business, in our specialty arm of retail, we get a little nervous about individual productivity because it feels a little bit like commission. And we're reluctant to pay commission because we're afraid that it creates a sales floor that's competitive, a sales floor in which maybe the employees don't consider the customer's needs, they consider their own needs for making a sale and making money. And as a result, then, what we do to shy away from that is we say, well, we won't measure any individual productivity, and that way we reduce our standards, and the result of that is not positive. I'm going to recommend that you consider a couple of different areas of evaluation focused around the transaction. And that is, each individual transaction of your day in your store, did the customer get the very best experience? And you can measure this, and you can set standards, and that's what I'm recommending that you consider doing. The first of these is conversion. Do you measure the conversion rate of your store? Now, this can be very simple. It's as simple as putting a door counter and tracking the times every time your door is opened, and then at the end of the day, count the number of transactions. And the number of transactions divided into the door counter number is your conversion rate. Now, you may argue, well, that's not a scientific number because the UPS man may drop off a delivery or my salespeople leave for lunch. Well, of course, it's not scientific, but it is the beginning of evaluating improvement. You know, and my point is, if you're on the sales floor as a manager, you can quickly tell how well your staff is at converting simply by watching. Watch the floor. Customers walk in, they wander around, no one speaks to them, they walk out. The problem there is not that we're not good salespeople. The problem there is we're not connecting, we're not greeting, we're not welcoming. And so the first step to great conversion is being outwardly mobile. It is being curious. It is in moving toward people and trying to create a connection. And this is the single greatest opportunity I see in most of our retail operations. So to close more, you got to connect more. And so how well does your staff do in conversion? If I'm connecting with someone, do I turn it into a sale? This is where you should set standards and enforce standards. Next up, average transaction value. How much does the customer spend in each transaction? This number is easy to find. If you can get it from your POS system right now, you know the number of sales from last year, you know how many transactions you had last year, divide that into the sales number, and that's your average transaction value. Now, right from the get-go, you can have an average transaction value standard. My guess is in most of the people, in the stores of most of the people listening today, your average transaction value probably sits somewhere between $75 and maybe $125, depending on your store. So let's say then your average transaction value is $90. So right there you have a standard for average transaction value. If you begin then to compare individuals' performance against the store, you can see people that are below the standard. So you've got a relatively new employee that's been with you 90 days. You know that the store average transaction value is 90, and you pull some numbers and can see that over the last month, this new employee is averaging $70 in average transaction value. Here's an employee that is below your standard. Now, once you've set the standard, your job as manager is to coach and train and get improvement. And if you can't, then you make a change into people that can meet your standard. Average transaction value is a good number for you to consider evaluating. Next up, units per transaction. UPTs are a basic core measurement of retail. So I'm walking in today and I'm let's say, for example, you got a woman walking into your store to buy a pair of running shoes. And so she buys a pair of running shoes. My salesperson helps her. Everything goes well. She gets to the register, thanks me, spends $115, and walks out the door. That is one unit in that transaction. Now, if I'm a good salesperson, I simply ask the woman as she's shopping with me, what socks does she run in? And I introduce her to 2 or 3 pairs of technical socks, and she considers them, likes them, decides she'll go ahead and buy 2 pairs of them since she's running 4 days a week. She needs those socks. Oh, and by the way, since you're replacing your running shoes, when's the last time you replaced your sports bra? Well, it's been about 6 months. Great. Let me show you what we've got in sports bra. So now we've gone from a pair of shoes to 2 pairs of socks and sports bra. And as we're standing at the register, I ask her what she does about nutrition to keep herself energized during her runs. I introduce her to a new type of nutrition, which she tries. My UPTs go from 1 to 5. Now, this measure is good because it measures the level of engagement that I have with my customer. It measures how well I'm introducing products to my customer. Not UPT from a crass money-making position, even though that is what's going to happen. The other side of it is that the customer gets a better, more interactive experience and more exposed to the products that help make their experience better, both in the store and in their sport. And so I would recommend that you consider a UPT standard and that you measure that standard and insist upon that standard because it is a direct measure of great customer service, in my opinion. Now, how do you set the bar? By the way, I've just hit a couple. Your product, your team selection, your individual transactions. There are so many categories that you could create. There could be setting the bar standards around timeliness and around individual appearance. Setting the bar should be a common occurrence in your role as manager, knowing what you want people to look like, how you want them to show up, what their capacity is for knowledge, as well as the customer service experience. How do you do it? Well, it's actually very, very simple. It is in one-on-one conversations. I've found too many managers that believe that they can call a meeting, grab the whole staff together, stand up at the front and say, folks, here's your new set of rules. Rule number 1, show up on time. Rule number 2, wear the team shirt. Rule number 3, everybody cleans the bathroom. And while these rules are being written off or read off, you see salespeople in the back of the room and they're thinking to themselves, yeah, that timeliness thing, I'm glad he's reading that for these new people that aren't getting to work on time. I know he understands that I can't get to work here on time because I've got to drop my son off at daycare, so surely he's not talking about me. He must be talking about those other folks. Well, when you have a team meeting and you describe, rules, guidelines, and standards, oftentimes people don't believe you're actually talking to them. So I find a one-on-one conversation is the secret to setting the bar. This is what I want from you. This is why I want you to do it. And then you can look face to face to that person and go, what do you think? Do you agree? Will you do it? And if you think, well, this sounds like an awful lot of time. Yeah, it might be an extra few minutes today, but think how much time it's going to save you in the long run. But that is a crucial element of how we set the bar. And if you've not had those one-on-one face-to-face conversations with people, well, no wonder you're not getting what you want. So it's crucial that you do that. Now, if you don't set the bar, you don't set a standard, you can expect to see more of this scene from Meet the Fockers, where Ben Stiller's got a wall of, he calls it a wall of shame, with a lot of participation medals and ninth place trophies. And you got Robert De Niro going, I didn't know they made a ninth place ribbon. Why? Because everybody's happy that he just showed up. Didn't matter what he did. And unfortunately, well, that's just not good enough. In our competitive world, this is not going to work for us. It's not going to work for our customers, and it's crucial that we learn to set standards. Now, we here at the Man Group believe that this role is crucial. And if what I've said today has resonated with you, and what I've said today seems to be accurate, we believe that the role of the store manager is crucial here. And if you're an owner, I'm encouraging you to invest time and effort in your store manager to help them learn to be better at leadership and profitability. We've got a 3-day session upcoming October 7th through 9th here in Asheville that in an experiential way shows you, teaches you, and develops your skills at each of the things that we've said here. How to motivate and lead, how to be a confident and competent communicator, How to Lead Change and Build Your Team. It's an incredible course that you will walk away much more gifted, much more skilled, and prepared to be a higher level manager. And we'd actually recommend you consider this course. It's upcoming in October. We can give you a lot more information about it. We're excited about it, and we hope that you will consider it. But as you've listened to this session today, what can you do this week in the area of
Unmuted?
Well, first of all, sign up for our next webinar, which we'll do a release on it in the upcoming week to tell you when the next one is scheduled. I believe it's just a couple of weeks away, where we will tackle the second issue of evaluating performance. But what can you do to set the bar this week? Well, for now, it's not a good idea for you to roll out 10 new rules starting today. Say, hey, folks, I just went to a webinar. Here's 10 new guidelines. That's probably not going to go over well. But what 2 or 3 new areas that you would like to see some standards in could you go out and have one-on-one conversations with your people? We'd like you to encourage you to identify the 2 or 3 things that you might do this week that would be improvements in your standard that you would like to make important. Now, we'll be happy to follow up with you. In fact, we'll send a follow-up survey for you and also an email to offer ourselves to you to have some conversation with you about how you might take the next step to implement some of this into your store. Remembering this is a process and not just a magic formula. So I would encourage you to do that and pay attention to the follow-up that we're going to offer to help you install this in your store. We'd also like to have the opportunity for you to ask us any questions about this, and we've allowed a few minutes for us to do this. Mark, I'm sure you'll explain how we're going to go through this process. So back to you, Mark.
Sure. Well, we actually do have a couple quick questions. And if you have any questions, keep in mind that you can just note those on the control panel on the chat section. The first question that I have for you, Dan, is how do I set the bar with someone who has been with us for a long time?
Oh, yeah, well, that's probably probably the first question. Is I'm talking about setting the bar and you've got new employees, you might go, yeah, that's easy. What do I do with Bill, who was here before I was born? How do I go in and set the bar with him? And that's a good question. You know, the approach with seasoned veterans is the same. It is still in that one-on-one conversation, but the difference is I want to sit down with Bill, the 10-year veteran, and say, Bill, I need your help. And you've got to kind of bring him into the team as part of the leadership and say, this is something we need to do for the good of our company. And you have to give him the credibility to say, your endorsement of this and your involvement of this is important for our success. You have to tell him what's in it for him. And you have to get him on board. And I believe that your 10-year veteran has to be your first conversation. Starts with him, tip of the hat to his years, to his credibility, and at the same time, if he's the one with the problem, you have to show him why it's important for him to be the first one to make the change. Not easy, but I think if you try to move away from people and not address the elephant in the room, he's not complying. If you do that, you will not be able to be successful across anybody else in your team. So. Good question, and that's where I'd start. That's how I'd do it. Any others?
Yeah, we've got one more, Dan. How do I have a one-on-one conversation with an employee that is underperforming?
Well, good question, and the challenge is to be sure that you do have the question. If you let time pass, and they're underperforming, then all you're doing is you're setting the standard. You know, so this can be as simple as someone whose shift begins at 1 o'clock. And they start coming in at 1:05. So if you don't say anything about it and hope that it's just a mistake, and a week goes by in which every day of the week they come in at 1:05, well, guess what the standard is? The standard is 1:05. Now, if they show up at 1:10, now they're just pushing that 1:05 limit a little bit. You know, if you let 1:10 go by, then you've just lowered the bar to 1:10 as the new time when they're to come in. So the one-on-one to someone who is underperforming is simply be sure you do it. And then the other issue is that the conversation for underperformance must be done off the floor, away from anybody else on your team. You don't want to embarrass this person or challenge or confront this person in an unsafe environment. That is, in a situation where they might feel embarrassed or challenged. Pull them out of the store, away from anybody else, and have that one-on-one conversation with them. Now, I will tell you that under section 6 of our 7 steps, motivation and discipline, that discipline topic is big. And it's the single most important thing in this entire webinar series. How do you discipline and motivate underperformance? So we're going to, I said that backward. How do you motivate and discipline the underperformer so that there is a higher level of performance and meeting a standard? And we are going to address that in greater detail in week 6. So that's a good question. Thanks for sharing that.
Dan, one more. How do I know what my standard is as a manager?
Well, man, that's a good question. They're all good. These are great. So I think the question is, does the standard matter for customer service or for store profitability? You know, rather than am I OCD and I need to have all the yellow lined up before the blue? I mean, that may be one level of standard. But is the bathroom clean? Well, that's a question. Does a clean bathroom matter? Well, it matters if my customer's comfort is at risk. Does it make me more profitable? Well, if it keeps that customer there and feel more confident with me and have them stay a little longer, then yeah, maybe that does have something to do with profitability. So the question about standards to me, Mark, are related to, does it measurably affect the customer experience? Does it measurably affect store profitability? And so those are the standard issues. Those are the standards issues that I would make important and that I would prioritize. Good question.
Okay, I think that's it for now. So if any of our attendees have a question later and you'd like us to answer them, please feel free to contact me. I'm going to be sending out a quick 4-question survey out after today's webinar, so you'll have all my contact information handy. I'd also like to add that Dan referenced the 7 Steps to Manager Success webinar that we did a couple weeks ago. And if you're interested in seeing that webinar, that can be found on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/The Man Group, and The Man Group would be all one word. Should be pretty easy to find, and it's sitting right there along with a number of other videos. So again, we want to thank you for your time. We hope everyone has a great day and a fantastic weekend.